Today, a certain Xtreme team member is bent on finishing the Spyder on time, while the other just wants to have fun. Plus, it's Baja trucks on steroids at the Laughlin Desert Challenge.
Welcome to Xtreme 4x4 and our wicked Poison Spyder Bruiser 8 rock rod. We started with a pre-built chassis and then went ahead and built our own double triangulated four-link on our rebuilt Dana 60 with superior gears and a Detroit locker.
And then we dropped in a GM Performance Parts all-aluminum LS1, followed by a 4L65E automatic transmission and an Atlas II transfer case, a killer drivetrain for a killer machine.
This week we got to finish up all the fabrication so we can tear it apart for paint.
And then we get to build a custom front axle.
Let's get to work.
All right.
The list of items that need to be added to this chassis before we send it out is pretty long, but with a good plan of attack, we should be able to bang them out in no time. The first item is a spare tire mount. Don't breathe in the galvanized fumes. There you go.
Now this chassis is designed to accept a Jeep TJ front hood and grill shell, and we got these pieces from 4-Wheel Drive Hardware, a great source for Jeep parts. And when we drop this grill shell in place, you'll see that it's got to be trimmed around all these tubes, and when that's done, we can make mounts for these holes right here.
This chassis was designed with a gigantic storage area right in this spot over here. And we don't want to take away any of that space by putting a fuel cell right in the middle of it. So we're going to Rock Valley to have them custom build one for us. As soon as I get the measurements, I can make a template for them. I'll mock up a fuel cell by cutting a template out of this cardboard box. With it in place, I can check the location for our mounting points.
Poison Spyder included these trick little hood hinge blocks that we can weld on to hold our hood in place. With them in, I can check the location of our mounting points, then weld the blocks to the chassis. For a radiator, we spotted this little beauty at the SEMA show and earmarked it for this project right away. It's from Flexolite, and it's a heavy-duty 2-core aluminum rad with built-in fan. But the coolest part is these adjustable mounting brackets with these little T-slots. And this thing can fit into almost anything. You can even move the mount right to the back. This will tuck right up into place under the tube, and these mounts can be bolted into place.
Before we can even begin to think about driving this truck, we need to get some seats in there. Since we're going to be spending a lot of time in this rig on the trail, comfortable seats are an important decision that you need to make. So we went with Mastercraft for one of their fully suspended sportsman seats. And they put on this new Cordura fabric for us that's not going to fade in the sun, and it's going to be resistant to sand and dirt also. And if you ask really nicely, they'll even put in your own logo for you. Once we get some measurements, I can build them out. Move your foot over. All right, thanks. I'm going to use 1/4-inch steel by using the hydraulic press as a brake with these dies that we made out of angle iron and C-channel. I'll add some corner gussets for strength, measure and drill the holes, and with the sliders bolted on, I can weld the mounts to the chassis.
With the seat in place, we can go ahead and install our seat belts. Now we also went to Mastercraft for a comp certified 3-inch wide belt, and we got it with a clip attachment. So once we weld these brackets that we got from A&A Manufacturing to the chassis, we can just clip the belts in and we're good to go.
For the steering on this monster, we're going to go with a full hydraulic system that we got from PSC. Performance steering components has been in the industry for over 20 years, and we went with their hydraulic crossover system. Comes complete with a pump, a reservoir, the ram, return hose, and even an orbital valve. I'll need to fab up a mounting plate for the valve, tack it into the chassis, then bolt it in.
After the break, trophy trucks take to the air at the world-famous Laughlin Leap when Xtreme 4x4 continues.
Welcome back to Xtreme 4x4, the show that's all about off-roading. And so far you've seen us build some pretty serious trucks in this shop.
Some more hardcore than others, but none as serious as the $1 million trophy trucks that battle each year in Baja. Instead of the 500 to 1,000-mile races these guys run down in Baja, the Score Laughlin Challenge is 2 44-mile races.
This is probably the wildest for off-road that we do. The Baja 1000, I think, is a piece of cake compared to this.
Here you just got to go pedal to the metal and make it happen.
When you do the long races, you kind of set a pace so you can be there at the end or at the finish line. Laughlin, you're going 150% from start to finish.
This is not for wusses, let me tell you. And you know, the difference between this and a NASCAR event, a hamburger wrapper blows on the track, they cause a yellow flag. Here, it's racing.
It's all about going for it, you know, just standing on the gas and making everybody cheer.
There's a fine line between running it hard and pure insanity, and these drivers race that line.
This is essentially the fastest off-road vehicle in the world. Any other vehicle race in any other series throughout the world has limitations that these trucks don't, and we will slaughter anything that's out there.
Almost every male in the whole United States dreams of their four-wheel drive or pickup truck, you know, going out off-roading, and this is just a few levels above that.
At a cost of $500,000, these machines do more than go fast.
Kicking off the race weekend was the Laughlin Leap, where the fans got a chance to see these machines fly.
It's something that everybody comes out and tries to see how far they can make these big pieces of iron fly.
If I was in that truck right now, that'd be so rad. It'd be awesome. That'd be really cool just to fly through the air with them.
It's like getting shot out of a cannon, let me tell you. From the moment you step on the gas all the way till you leave the lift, it's like you're taking off out of a rocket ship.
Not even $3,000 for the winner was enough to convince some drivers.
We prefer to save our equipment for the race day.
Travis Coyne's 157-foot leap earned him this year's title.
We did it, we came through. Just held it wide open, and we got the farthest jump today.
Jason Baldwin didn't win the leap, but he doesn't care.
It's all about going fast across the desert.
Last year, the Californian went fast and won both the Score and Core titles.
It was a heck of a year, and our goal now is to try to do the same thing and win some more races.
He'll go for the repeat in one of the most advanced racing machines on the planet.
What we're racing here is a heavily modified F-150 Ford. The only thing stock about it is probably the sticker on the front grille.
With close to 800 horses, his unique suspension allows him to pound the desert at 140 miles per hour.
You notice on this truck the shocks lay horizontally instead of vertically, and we've got this big swing arm assembly. What this does for us is it gives us the ability to put the weight where we want it behind the rear axles. Basically just makes the truck go faster and a lot smoother through the big bumps. It's like doing 140 miles an hour in a hovercraft across the desert through 3-foot holes. It's pretty wild.
The desert is a brutal place, and to survive and win the Score championship is bigger than any one driver.
You have to have a fast truck, but you have to have a strong truck. You can't have too light of a truck or else it'll break. It takes years and years of development to make these things work right. In order to get that #1 plate, we all had to work together as a team to get it. That's what it's about out here, is working as a team.
At Laughlin, Jason limped to an 8th place finish over the 2-day event, but a rough weekend isn't enough to smash this racer's soul.
You really have to love what you're doing. And the thing that I love about about this is that you are on the edge a lot, and it's addicting. No matter how you do in the race, there's a real sense of accomplishment there.
Those horizontal shocks are pretty snazzy.
They are pretty trick. And we have to build a custom suspension underneath our rock rod, but first we need to build the axle to fit under it.
So don't touch that dial, we'll be right back.
Got an idea for the show? Drop us a line at Xtreme4x4TV.com.
Welcome back to Xtreme 4x4. We finished up most of the welding on our Poison Spyder Bruiser 8 chassis, and now it's time to start dealing with a custom front axle.
This axle took a lot of planning and a lot of research to truly become a bomb-proof axle. Because building an axle from scratch isn't as easy as throwing in some lockers, some shafts, and new gears.
But the nice thing about doing it this way is not only can we set a custom width, but we can go through the entire axle and analyze every part and eliminate potential weak points. Ready?
We started last week by removing the old axle tubes, which will now be replaced by these 3.5 DOM half-inch wall pieces that we got from Industrial Tube and Steel.
We cooled down the axle tubes so they'd shrink, making them easier to press into the housing. At the wheels, we opted for some Kingpin inner Cs. Now we got these from Crane high clearance axles, and they come in multiple tube options, and they're full chrome moly pieces for extra strength. And these things are ready for any custom application.
Kingpin front axles are getting harder and harder to find, so by using these pieces from high clearance, we can turn a ball joint axle into a stronger Kingpin style.
There you go.
And when you start messing with the front axle components, you're going to want to keep in mind the caster angle, which is the relationship between true vertical and the line drawn between the upper and the lower Kingpin. And we're going to put ours at about 6 to 8 degrees positive. Can I have that angle for you? Thank you.
Stop it. When you're starting with an empty housing like we did here, you have no baseline to determine your pinion depth. So you're going to need to invest in a tool called a pinion depth checker, like this one we got from T&D Machine. It will ensure that your pinion is sitting in the right depth of the housing as it's related to the ring gear, and that'll ensure a good gear tooth pattern when you're all finished. Now this is a pretty extensive tool, and it's not for the amateur, but if you pick one of these up, you're going to be the envy of all your four-wheeling buddies.
We're going to be installing a matching set of 513 superior gears on a Detroit locker in the front axle. But these are reverse rotation gears, and you can see that just by looking at the different angles on the teeth. The benefit of having a reverse rotation is that you're going to get your pinion above your axle center line, which is going to give you better clearance and better drive shaft angles. Now some people will take the rear housing, move it to the front, build this multi-million-dollar axle around it, and leave the standard gear set. Now the problem with that is that you're going to have a low pinion, and a hypoid gear is built with a drive side and a coast side. And when you move that power to the coast side, it makes it super inefficient, it's going to starve your gears of oil, and it's going to lead to premature failure.
With the pinion depth set in the housing, we can pull the checker out and begin to install our superior gears. And we've got our shim pack, our dial indicator, and all of our special tools ready, and this takes a lot of work. And if you missed our episode last week on how to set a set of gears up, don't worry, because after the show, if you go to our website, we're going to have a page on there that's going to take you step by step on how to install a set of gears in a Dana 60.
Duplicolor's Grabber Green happens to be a distinctive color on all Crane high clearance axle parts, so I'll give them a good coat before they're bolted up. To get this outer knuckle on, Superior sent us this super cool Kingpin rebuild kit. It comes with all the necessary components.
With our spindles in place, we can start planning our brake system. Now I went to Dynatrack and had them send us one of their unit bearing elimination kits so we can run this rotor support and a hat rotor, and then eventually run some multi-piston calipers on this axle.
With an almost complete axle, it's time to start measuring for our shafts. And the guys at Superior sent us this form that we need to fill out for all the information needed. And then once that's done, we can send out the information for this axle and our rear axle for a brand new set of 35 spline chrome moly pieces.
And when those Superior axle shafts show up, we're going to link the inner and outer with the ultimate and indestructible, and more importantly, rebuildable U-joint from CTM Racing, and then we'll cap everything off with a set of drive flanges from Poly Performance made out of 4140 fully heat-treated chrome moly. And this is going to ensure the ultimate connection between the outer shaft and the wheel hub itself.
And then make sure you stick with us through the break, because now that we have an axle, we can actually build a suspension for it.
For more information on anything you've seen today, check us out online, Xtreme4x4TV.com.
Welcome back to Xtreme 4x4. We got our front axle under the chassis, and by using some of the similar suspension geometry that we used on the rear, I can go ahead and start planning out my front suspension.
On the rear, we're ready to start installing our new coilover shocks. Now these Bilstein 9100 rock crawlers have a lot of new technology in them. A standard coilover shock requires fast cycling or high-speed movement of the piston inside the shock. Well, these shocks are designed to work under slow-speed movement, which is what you want in a rock crawler. Now we're going to put them together with some Eibach 14-inch 200-pound springs. We got 2 for each shock. We'll set them up in the rear, lower the truck down, check the ride height, move them to the front, and do the same. If the front's sitting a little bit lower, we'll pull one 200 out and swap in a 250 and see if that can change. We'll just put it all together with some tabs from A&A.
Link is very similar to the rear, except for the fact that the lower links are not as triangulated due to engine clearance issues and mounting point issues. But that's not going to affect our anti-squat or instant center, although it will affect our body roll, which is the roll axis, which is the body wanting to roll on itself. But as long as all the mounts are at the same height, we should be A-OK.
With the chassis sitting on its coilovers, we can go ahead and take the first measurement for our drive shaft. Then we'll come back out and pull the springs out of those coilovers, compress the suspension, and then extend it and take those measurements, then we're ready to order our shafts.
Well, that's all we could squeeze into today's show, but the next time you see this rock rod, I will have painted it, and it'll be well on its way to going on or off the trail.
That's right, we're going to plumb it, wire it, and fire it, and then we'll have this thing out. It's a lot of work, but I know we can do it.
I'm not scared.
And you might need a new shirt.
Actually, I'll probably just throw this one away.
So if you have any shirts for Jessi, send them in.